6 years ago, I had £0 in savings. I was a shopaholic and I grew up with zero financial literacy. I learned everything that I now know about budgeting, saving, investing, completely self-taught. Recently, The Telegraph called me a high earner, which is technically true, but I struggle to see myself this way because it was not long ago that I was on my entry-level graduate salary starting out in my 9 to 5 in the fashion industry. What I want to do in this video is take a deep dive into mindset shifts and the action steps I took to get to where I am today, to be able to work for myself, to have built a business in a year's time. I started content June 2024 and now it's October 2025 and I have landed 5-figure brand deals. I'm now working for myself and I wanted to talk about all of the things that got me there. The first thing that I want to address is you are probably using social media wrong. There is a massive issue with social media, phone addiction, doom scrolling in Gen Z. Don't get me wrong, completely aware of that, and a lot of it is out of our control, a lot of it's in our control. It's another debate. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that you could definitely be using social media more productively for your life. Don't get me wrong, I've been there. You're doom scrolling on Instagram, you see people living the life that you want to have, someone getting married, someone going to Bali to find themselves. It can be super depressing, especially when you're comparing yourself. But the reason why it depresses you is because you know deep down that you haven't done something for yourself. You have not achieved the goals that you want to achieve. It actually has nothing to do with that other person that you know nothing about. Plus, it could be fake. A lot of social media is fake. That's regardless, that's out of the question. How can we actually take that level of comparison and turn that into, instead of envy, turn it into inspiration? Here's what I realized. We have access to so many people's success and their lives now more than we ever have throughout history. Now that is a massive advantage if you have a business mindset. If you have a loser mindset, which is, oh, this person's doing better than me, so I therefore can't do as well, then that is when you'll struggle. But if you actually flip the script and you take all of this as inspiration, regardless of your situation, and you realize, okay, that person might have different background, different circumstances, but they've done it, meaning that's social proof that it's possible, meaning I can do it too. So instead of using social media to feel inadequate, we're using it as a blueprint. There are so many successful people sharing their tips, sharing their secrets, and I think that we can be using that. We can be learning from it rather than comparing ourselves. I think to find out what you want from life, you have to find out what you don't want. This means creating an anti-vision. First step that I would take if I wanted to be successful or wanted to find exactly what I wanted to do out of fun, not just to make money, I would find what I don't want. I don't regret working a 9 to 5, going to uni, doing all these things that perhaps didn't propel me very quickly. It actually slowed me down from reaching my goals now. But I do not regret them because they taught me what I don't want. Now we call this an anti-vision because a lot of people make vision boards and that's totally great and they do work in my opinion. But what you also need to work out is if that's difficult for you to pinpoint what you want, more just have experiences and figure out what makes you unhappy, what makes you stress, and what situations do you not want to find yourself in again. Every single time you do something, learn from an experience. Do you go to an event, you feel drained? What job don't you want? I got brutally honest with myself about what I didn't want, and I think gratitude is super important. I'm all into frugality and saving money, so I know that gratitude is the backbone of that, and I think it's the key to happiness. But gratitude is not the same thing as complacency. Knowing that you could do better and not doing that because you're just safe where you are, that is killing your growth. I had to be honest about the fact that I didn't want to work a 9 to 5. That made me, in my head, sound out of touch. But because I'd grown up with, this traditional mindset of go to school, get a job, I was conditioned to think that that was normal and that was the standard. And it is normal, that's what a lot of people do, but that doesn't mean that it had to be what I wanted. For a while, I was so against being honest with myself because I was scared. I was scared what backlash I would get if I chose to not go down the traditional route. Actually, a book that I'm reading right now, Flow, talks about the flow state, about finding work that you find enjoyable. And he talks about a state called being autotelic, and it's where you actually don't pursue a goal because of the outcome, you pursue it because of the process. So say for example, someone that trades in and out of stocks, not because they want to make money, but because they love the process. They love researching, they love the adrenaline rush. That is the difference between an autotelic person as opposed to someone that's chasing a specific outcome. So that's first and foremost. I built a business by accident. I became an influencer by accident. I didn't intend to set out to do that, which is why I think I have seen some success in it, because I didn't go and ask some bigger creators, how do I grow? How do I do? I just started. I didn't ask anyone, I just started. And I think that if you're trying to do the same, you need to have the same mindset. Do not just be asking for advice for months on end, researching how to do things. Just go and do it today. So yes, I built a business, but it didn't start off as a business. So going back to the point of finding your anti-vision, I had to go through all of these hoops to go to uni, to go and start a career in fashion, to realize that's not what I wanted. And so the worst thing that you could possibly be in life is stagnant. So you're not doing anything, like bedrotting, or just you have no purpose. Try something. You're so worried about it being the right decision that you're preventing yourself from reaching the right decision, because you have to go through all of these failures or all of these different paths to reach the right path. Find out what you want by finding out what you don't want. Number 2, be comfortable with being extreme. Living in your authentic self, in my opinion, means being honest, and it also means maxing out what you love, so doing what you love. So for example, I talk a lot about saving money, and a lot of people have an issue with that. First of all, it's someone else's money. I don't even know why people care, but I like to save money. I do not like to spend a lot. I like to be super intentional. I do splurge on some things. I like to spend on travel, experiences, family, like all of the things that I feel enrich my life, or like quality things that will improve my life. But most of the time, I'm fairly like frugal day to day. Now, a lot of people have an issue with that because it's extreme, but I don't care. I actually lean into it because I think the most successful people, they lean into their authentic self. When I first started making content, like I didn't really get comments like this, but I could hear what people were thinking, or could judge what the feedback was, is that I'm too obsessed with money. As a creator, there's almost an impetus to make your content relatable and normal and palatable for everyone. A big one that I got is that you're working too hard. Don't tire yourself out, don't burn yourself out trying to do everything. And I agree, I take rest periods. I've gotten a lot better with setting boundaries with my workload. But one thing that I will not take from people is telling me to work less. I am not going to be motivated, or I'm not going to have this energy in my 30s. If I'm going to build this business or do this now, it has to be in my 20s. And so I think being extreme is one of the key factors to successful people. The whole point is, if you find yourself wanting to do better, you're watching this video because you want to be in the 1% of something, that means that you can't do what 99% of people are doing. You have to do what the 1% are doing. Extraordinary results do not come from ordinary input. So look, if you have a vision, you know what you're doing, and you're also being healthy and balanced and all of that underneath it all, but you might appear a bit extreme on the surface, don't listen to the people saying to slow down or to not do as much, or you're doing too much. Trait 3 is being borderline delusional and having audacity. Literally having the audacity of a white man has got me to where I am today. When I was growing up, I was so shy, like cripplingly shy. I would not speak, I would not answer the phone if someone called and asked to speak to me. I was so shy. I struggled to make friends. I had no friends at school. The only thing that has helped me get there is faking it till I make it, and literally looking around me and seeing all these arrogant, overly confident people that weren't very talented, that, you know, didn't have much to be confident about, seeing their levels of confidence and actually seeing myself and thinking, no, why am I playing myself down? Why am I talking down to myself? Why am I holding myself back from opportunities because I think I don't deserve it? No, I deserve this. Stepping into my own and actually just having that audacity is one of the things that's got me here. I was on the phone to someone recently talking about a long-term project that I'm working on, and I was saying to them, oh, this is so bad, like I'm really not confident about it. And they were like, no, like I'm so glad that you're still so humble after having all these followers and everything. Not that I even have that much, but I'm just saying that yes, I still have that element of modesty and humility, which I think is a very important trait in a person. I don't think you should be big-headed, but at the same time, you should recognize when to have that audacity, when to have that delusional level of confidence. What I mean by delusional is like, say to yourself, I want to be a millionaire. Like when you actually say that, do you feel uncomfortable? Do you feel like it's unrealistic? Do you think the only way that's gonna happen is if you win the lottery? Because if you think that, you have more self-work to do. When I started working on myself, becoming financially literate, doing the maths about my income, how much I could potentially earn, I now say to myself, I'm gonna become a millionaire, not as like a little manifestation technique. No, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And that's the kind of mindset you need to have. This trait is having a bias to action, so doing instead of planning. You're very much a perfectionist, you plan everything. I want you to listen to this because that used to stop me from achieving what I wanted. I would say that I wanted to start a YouTube channel, but I said that for years. And it's only in the last few months I've actually decided to start posting consistently. And I realized that it's in the messy quantity where you get the quality. You don't get the quality first thing. You actually have to put out stuff to realize what works, to realize what you want to make content about. And I was only able to do that because I'd spent a year posting TikToks every single day around my 9 to 5 and seeing what worked, seeing what didn't work, but I wouldn't have been able to do that had I not taken action. I think you need to be more accepting of messy situations, of failure. In fact, I now crave failure because it is embarrassing, it's humbling, but it means I've learned something. And when I learn something, knowledge is power. So I'm continuously leveling myself up by failing. And that's the way you need to reframe it to yourself. You are a certain number of steps of failure away from success. The key is you have to start something before you're ready. And I know that sounds so counterintuitive or counter to everything that you've already learned. Like, you should refine things and make sure they're good quality. I totally agree. I think that things should be good quality, but I think that only comes from actually putting something out there that you can refine. This could be like investing. A lot of people say that they only want to invest when they can invest like £1,000 a month, which is super unrealistic, especially in London. I've heard people say that. I've also heard people say that they need to allocate a whole day. Girl, you do not need a whole day to open a trading 212 account. It takes 10 minutes. Trait number 5 is aggressively close the learning gap. The only difference between you and the things that you want is potentially not knowing the steps that you need to take. Now, I know I spoke a lot about action, and action is really important, but you don't want to be just fumbling around in the dark. You actually have to know what you're doing. So the only way to do that is by education. Now, if you work a 9 to 5, which I was previously for the last 2 years, like, I know how it is to not have a lot of time. I would incorporate this or incorporate education into your day-to-day lives. Like, if you're going for a walk or you're on the tube, listen to a podcast about the topic that you want to learn more about, whether it's investing, whether it's content creation. Incorporating education in your day-to-day. Instead of just watching influencers that promote products, instead following educational influencers. A key thing is speaking to people, networking. I used to feel really bad for asking for advice or asking for things. And yes, I mentioned before that I don't ask for advice, but some particular things I do, like if it's business related, I'm a complete newbie, so I will be asking people, oh, what do you charge for this? Or, how did you do this? Like, very quick questions. And you know what? People are happy to help me because they know that I would do the same for them. Networking is this thing where you think that it's just going to this fancy corporate event and speaking to people. That's not what networking is. It's simply just making friends or making connections and mutually benefiting each other. So if you feel like you can help people with things, there is definitely room for you to ask. But no, the thing that's standing between you and the thing you want is probably a knowledge gap, and you need to be reading, you need to be learning and be curious about that thing if you really want to achieve it. I think the way to really tell whether you actually want something is, do you have that childlike curiosity? If you don't, perhaps it's a desire that's been put into your head by external things, school, parents, different peers. Number 6 is be strategically lazy. Now, I know this makes no sense to anyone that's very familiar with my content because I talk a lot about productivity, and I've also built my social media platforms to 300k. Like, I wouldn't have been able to do that if I was lazy, but here's why I want you to reconsider that I am actually quite lazy, but I'm a very efficient person. What I mean by that is everything that I make is a minimum viable product. What do I mean by that? I don't make utter crap. I try to make my content good quality, but I'm not going to spend 5 hours editing something for it to just get 5k views. I know what will deliver me certain results, and I know that I can spend a specific amount of time, whether it's half an hour, 45 minutes, editing a short form video to know that it will get maybe 10k views. You have to be so strategic with your time. If you are just blindly making content and pouring in hours, like I'm talking days of scripting, editing, just for that to do badly, it's not a case of, oh, if something does badly, it's not worthwhile, because you could be monetizing in other ways. Like, what it is about thinking is, what am I doing right now? How much energy and time am I pouring into this thing? And what is the result? Thinking strategically like that is going to help massively, because then you're not just blindly thinking, well, I put in 5 hours, so why haven't I got 500k views? It doesn't really work like that. Like, a lot of people at the start of their content creation journey will think, oh, well, if I've spent like every single day making videos, why haven't I blown up yet? It's not the same as a salaried or hourly job. It's not the input and therefore you deserve output. The algorithm doesn't owe you anything. The algorithm is just people. And Your content performance is determined on whether people like your content. Getting efficient just means knowing what works and leaning into that, taking systems and formulas and plugging that in rather than just going off of luck and thinking that everything is luck based. I would rather work 4 focused hours than 12 scattered hours doing random stuff that doesn't have a high return on investment. Everything that I do, I know exactly the outcome. If I want to make a carousel, what is the call to action? Where am I sending people? Because otherwise, what you do, like engagement for engagement's sake is great in your growth phase. I had 45 minutes in the morning to edit my content to make it. I'd edit on the tube and then I might do some during my lunch and after work as well. But I knew that I had such a short window of time that it really mattered what I made. I couldn't just be making random stuff. Trait 7 is brutal self-awareness. Now, one of the traits that I've been characterized by recently is humility or being modest. And I think that, yes, you can be too modest or too humble, and I think that could lean into more people-pleasing tendencies. But one thing that I'd say is a strength about me is that I will very much analyze things almost from an outsider's perspective and be quite self-critical, but not in a way where that paralyzes me. Like, a lot of people are self-critical in the sense where they will say, oh, I'm terrible at this, or I'm so bad. Like, they'll get in their head about things and then not take action. Instead, if I'm a bit self-critical about a bit of content that I've made, it's because I know exactly what I want to do next. Almost coming from a place of productivity, how am I going to change that or do something different next time? I think one of the reasons why a lot of people don't do well in content or just life in general is that they don't have that critical eye. You have to look at yourself and almost like a business, think what is working, what's not working. You keep trying to do what's not working, expecting different results. Key thing that's helped me to become a well-rounded person that knows a lot about personal finance or films or content creation is through actually recognizing that I didn't know anything. When someone is really into learning, they read a lot of books, you actually find when you read a lot of books that you know nothing, or it makes you feel like you know less because you are exposed to such vast amounts of information. I think being humble and admitting to yourself that you don't know enough is actually the thing that will help you learn more, because it gives you some motivation. I am now motivated to read because I feel like I barely have scratched the surface of neuroscience or self-improvement, all these topics I'm interested in. So actually being humble and saying to yourself whether you don't know something, whether something isn't good enough, but actually doing something productive with that, rather than it leaving you paralyzed. Number 8, you have to be obsessed. This is a little bit like the other point of being extreme, but being obsessed means that you will do that thing regardless of it has some certain outcome. What I mean by this is people that make content, even if they didn't make any money from it, they'd still probably make it. That's me. I love the process of it. I love editing. I love seeing what works. I love creating a character almost of myself. There's so many things to love about the mechanics of content creation, and I was only able to find that because I tried so many different things. I worked in fashion, I did internships, I tried many side hustles like reselling, and I landed on something that required 0 upfront costs and required me to just be myself and also to present myself in certain ways and continuously learn. That is something that I love about content creation, but you can apply this to so many different things. But finding what you love and staying obsessed with that thing is the thing that will make you successful. I think that no one ever became successful because they just landed on a good idea and then they didn't really care about it. You have to care about it, and that's why I don't suggest starting a side hustle just to make money. It has to be something that you feel is enjoyable or something that you could be fairly good at. Otherwise you won't stay consistent with it. With content creation more specifically, you don't need to find something that you're an absolute expert in. It can be something that you're passionate about. That's almost an advantage because you're coming at it from a much more relatable point of view. If you think about social media, 99% of people are beginners, and also most of those people aren't on social media to find your type of content. They are on social media to be entertained, and therefore when you come at it from an educational or value standpoint, you immediately stand out when you have that authentic voice or when you blend in your personal experience. When you are truly yourself, you eliminate competition because no one can have your unique combination of experiences and mindsets. It's essentially about trying to find something that doesn't feel like work. And I can safely say that now that I've become self-employed or made it my career, I don't feel like it's work. Sitting and talking to a camera is enjoyable for me, and it feels much more enjoyable than sitting at a desk answering emails and doing admin that I don't care about. Trait 9 is kind of similar, but be unapologetically authentic. When you step into your authenticity, or you're honest, or you're just yourself, you eliminate the competition. The reason my content works isn't because I'm the smartest person, it isn't because I'm the most beautiful person, it's because I'm just real. I share vulnerabilities, I share my experiences, I share personal details, and therefore when you do something that other people aren't willing to do, which is be themselves, you immediately just rise to the top. With social media, we're often conditioned to think that the way to grow is by curating and building a whole world and building this curated and perfect brand. But actually what's working on social media at the moment is exactly the opposite of that. Being honest, having a story and being able to tell a story. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm 100% my authentic self online. I think if anyone's a business owner or content creator, you can't show up as your whole self because you're already showing so much of yourself. You have to tailor it. So I will always share things about my finances or lifestyle or self-improvement, but I won't show like my personal life. But that's a choice that I make. But other creators might show their personal life, but not their finances. It really does depend. I don't think that you can show everything about your life, but I will say that having one aspect of your life that you're very transparent about, is a way to get ahead. Trait 10 is have main character energy. What do I mean by this? Not being an NPC. Now, if you don't know gaming, a non-playable character is just a robot or a character that's just built into the code. You can't play that character, and therefore they have the same lines, the same beliefs. And you could almost argue that a lot of people are NPCs that just go down a traditional route and they don't question everything. Now, I'm not trying to give some weird opinion that I think that I'm better than everyone else. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that a lot of people are trapped in mindsets that they don't think that they can break out of because they have this internal programming that is just there from birth and they don't ever question it. And the way to break out of this is to just question things, is to think, was this idea my own or was this just given to me by other people? Did I actually want to buy that or did I just see it on an influencer? It's time to take charge of your life. You are the main character. Stop acting like a side character to someone else's life. Feel like you're a side character at the whim of your friends. It's time to take control, show boundaries, say what you want instead of going along with what everyone else wants. This particularly happens in group settings, which is why I don't have many friend groups per se, because I find that there's like a herd mentality that you just do anything that the herd does. But what do you notice about a lot of main characters in films, TV shows? They take risks, they have problems, they're not afraid to create problems or drama because that is what makes life rich. But the key is they get back up, they create their own opportunities. The side characters are just written already. They live their life, they don't do anything special. But you as a main character, you need to rewrite that script. What I wish for anyone is to stop waiting, stop watching from the sidelines and actually do something. Take action on the thing that you want to do, whether it's writing, content creation, starting a hobby, starting a business. These are all things that you're totally capable of doing. Think about it, there's less capable people doing the things that you want. There's nothing to stop you from doing them other than getting in your own way. I wish if I could go back to my 18-year-old self, I would tell her to just start a TikTok. To just do it, because yes, I would have been at uni, but I'd have so much more free time. My content probably would have been 10 times better. And when I think about how much money I've made since starting content creation, I think about how much more I could have made had I started sooner. The same goes for investing. I just wish on my 18th birthday I'd set up a stocks and shares ISA. So there you have it. Those are the 10 traits to get you in the top 1% of people in your 20s. The truth is you don't need to be at the top 1% right now. You need to just start and you need to get somewhere. Start that side hustle, start that business. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and check out more at frugalchic.co.uk. If you enjoyed this video, definitely subscribe so you don't miss out on further content from me.